Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. You know when you're really excited about a new season, you discard all of your preconceptions and anything that might have come before from the previous campaign, and you just look with a bit of hope and anticipation into what is a fresh start, an exciting new campaign ahead. Yeah, then Sunday happened. Wow. Any excitement, any positivity, I think most people had drained away by about 6:30 on Sunday evening. It was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. It was similar to the type of performances. Bournemouth, Palace at the end of the season, that kind of feeling. Probably wasn't as bad as Sheffield United. That was absolutely horrendous. It's just terrible. I think the biggest thing was all of those games I've spoken about were away. This was at home at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and it was just awful. It was just, some of the stuff Mourinho said afterwards, which we'll come to, just kind of summed it up for me. A lack of desire, that state of mind, and again, we'll come on to the whole lazy pressure thing that he spoke about, and that stood out for me on the day, massively. Just like of the one day you'd expect everyone to be buzzing for it, excited, giving everything to the cause. It didn't feel like that. It just didn't. However, it could have been a different game. Both teams had first half chances. Harris Charlison has missed that after a horrendous Ben Davies kind of overhit pass to Alderweireld. Alderweireld, unfortunately, showing his kind of lack of pace as he gets older, but he probably didn't have that pace to begin with. And I think, the blame has to lie with Davies for the pass. And then Richarlison was actually I originally wrote he was in a tight angle for his shot. It kind of wasn't. Actually, when you look at it back, it was more the fact he was slipping over. That really should have put the ball in the net. But then Spurs had big chances, I felt. Matt Dougherty put through by a lovely little chipped ball by Harry Kane in a 1-2. Should have put that away. And then there was a big moment where Son, just at the last minute, made a great break. Lucas Moura found him. Terrific run. Harry Kane steaming through the middle. Really should have been the ball. It just would have put him straight through and goal. But he kind of delayed it and played what maybe in his head was a slightly cleverer ball to put off the defence was to Dele Alli. But Dele quickly got crowded out. And he was quite fortunate to get a shot away, which Pickford saved. But, they were big moments. And perhaps Tottenham took theirs. It's a different game, but it wasn't. It was a dreadful game. Absolutely dreadful game. And I actually felt Spurs were worse in the second half after Mourinho made his controversial half-time change. Taking off Dele Alli, bringing on Moussa Sissoko. His reasoning afterwards was that he kind of wanted to attack the space around Alan and use that a little bit better. It just didn't. All it did was, Tottenham were already struggling in the fact that they had two very defensive central midfielders in Højbjerg and Harry Winks. And then they brought on Sissoko as kind of like a right winger, but essentially all it did was you took away one attacking threat and replaced him with someone who was very willing, but just not able to provide anything when he got into attacking areas. Sissoko, really came on and struggled, and it was just, whether there was anything that's gone on behind the scenes. I've seen Agbomlahor today alluding to a potential argument behind the scenes. It may be that anyone that's seen the All or Nothing series has seen that Dele isn't afraid to speak his mind about certain things, about tactics and things like that. And perhaps there was a little bit of a disagreement. But again, there's been no confirmation of that. Mourinho just said it was tactical, but for me it was weird. And I think the main idea as well that he said it was about was getting Lucas into a number 10 role. And for me, he actually did start there way back in his career. Was it Sao Paulo back in Brazil? But that's just not a role for Lucas. He's not a creator. He's not really a guy that's going to thread passes through. And to be honest, he had a pretty poor day. He worked incredibly hard, as he always did. I'd say out of all of them, when he spoke about the lazy pressure, which we'll come to later, it probably didn't apply to Lucas. I thought he never stopped. But in terms of his first touch, it was like hitting a ball off a wall. It was never sticking with him. He just couldn't hold the ball up. He did the Lucas thing, unfortunately, of trying to run past two or three people and running into the third. So for all the people, for me to shift into that number 10 role, it just wasn't Lucas, and it didn't work. It was awful. It was awful, and even the goal itself. I wouldn't say. I think Everton deserved the win. I think there's no denying that whatsoever. I think they did create probably enough chances on the day, especially second half. But what I would say is the goal itself was just so poor from Tottenham. Calvert-Lewin, who I actually think would be a brilliant player for Tottenham. I really do. I really like Calvert-Lewin. I think he's, funnily enough, is the perfect Mourinho striker in a way. I've seen a lot of people blaming Eric Dyer. I think Eric Dyer is partly at fault because he didn't jump, he didn't really dominate the box he should have done. But I think people are letting Toby Alderweireld get away with this as well. He didn't even get off the floor, and he was the guy directly in front of Calvert-Lewin. So if he'd got up in the air and won the ball himself, or even made it more difficult for Calvert-Lewin, the ball might not have ended up in the net. But yeah, if you watch him, absolutely leaden-footed. And as I said, I think both of them, I think Dyer and Alderweireld are probably equally to blame there. It got in between them. Terrible. And something I've really don't want to give any spoilers away from Amazon stuff because I'm aware that people haven't probably watched something. But one thing I have noticed, and this is just a general point across the whole thing, is that we often see at half-time and pre-match talks, Mourinho really goes into details about what he expects to happen. Very specific things that the opposition will do and that Tottenham need to be aware of. You'll see it in the United half-time. He essentially predicts something that happens. I think he did it against West Ham. There's loads of little bits and pieces, and he really breaks down as well after games what players didn't do. And for me, I'd be stunned if Calvert-Lewin wasn't very much addressed within half-time, before the match, whenever, and about the aerial threat, and about making sure that any set pieces that get in those boxes do not get to him. And yeah, it was a dreadful performance from front to back. My player ratings for probably the first time, I think I had 2 people got a 6. Everyone else was way lower, 5s and 4s and things like that. And it's the first game of the season. How are the fans who aren't even there at their homes meant to get excited about a season when the players didn't even look that excited at themselves? They didn't look ready and raring to go for a new season. They looked just kind of like, oh, we're back again. I know it's been a quick turnaround. I know there's extenuating circumstances behind various things this season. But everyone's dealing with that. Absolutely everyone. And there's been some really good performances over the first weekend. It's no excuse whatsoever. But for me, as the title of this is going to be, I haven't actually written it yet, but I'm sure it will sit there above or below. I'm not sure where it goes. For me, there are 2 men, essentially, that can kind of save this season. Sounds a bit daft after one game, but I just think can start to give Tottenham hope and progression on the pitch, and they desperately need. And that's not a new striker. A new striker is needed, but that's not why Spurs didn't win on Sunday. For me, the 2 guys we have to see in action, and I'd even go as far to say together on the pitch, Tanguy Ndombele and Giovanni Lo Celso. I know for this first match, there were differing reasons why they weren't really available to start the match. Lo Celso failed a late fitness test. They're hopeful that he might be involved in some way on Thursday in Bulgaria, but we're still to see on that. Ndombele, he only returned from injury. It was 2 days before the Watford friendly, so he's had about 7-9 days, and essentially all the time before that he was injured. From when he had was it the knee injury in training, wasn't it, towards the end of the season? So yes, his fitness is way behind everyone else. But what gave me massive hope, I think, was the way that Mourinho spoke about him pre-match. He was really singing his praises. Really saying he's actually never seen him look better in training than the way he has, and he's worked incredibly hard. And for me, you know what I've said on these videos, that Spurs wanted to keep him. Mourinho felt as well that there's a player in there, just had to get the best out of him and adapt. And I just feel that what was missing on the pitch on Sunday was one or both of those 2 players. Ndombele came on in the final 15 minutes, but to be honest, for him, as I said, the fitness isn't there yet. And what I felt with his performance was really interesting. He came on the pitch and his first or second touch was a really progressive through ball. Straight, with no hesitation, straight into the feet. I think it was Kane. Nobody had been doing all that throughout the match. It had been all tippy-tappy, sideways stuff. And he immediately came on and bang, that was his first thought. But weirdly, as it went on, it was almost like he didn't want to upset Mourinho. He was very tactically disciplined and very much stayed in a set place. And the problem with that is then you're taking away what makes Ndombele special. You know, dribbling past players, threading those through balls into players and getting into the box himself. And I think Mourinho has to sit down with him and say, look, you know, whatever's happened has happened. This is a new season, new start. This may have happened, by the way. And, you know, I think about you is we don't have anyone else at Tottenham Hotspur like you. That's what you should say to him. You know, what you can do is special. You need to be fit and you need to be tactically responsible to the rest of the team and work hard and press and do all the things the other players do. But when you get the ball, you need to deliver the magic. And that's what Tottenham are missing. That's just a little magic touch. And I feel with Ndombele and Lo Celso, they do have it. This is the thing. Again, I know this upsets people, but I've been told they're not looking for another attacking midfielder because they believe they've got enough in Ndombele, Lo Celso and Ali. Obviously, Ali didn't work out for him on Sunday, but I do feel that you get those other two back in the squad, and I think Tottenham are a different outfit. You know, getting Ndombele to peak Ndombele would be, you know, just phenomenal. And I'm really sorry that I keep on going on and on and on about this, but please try him in a number 10 role as well. I just think, had that happened on Sunday, got him further up the pitch, I think he would have wreaked havoc. I just think he's such a nightmare. I think, for me, in that role, he'd be like Dembele, but with an end product. I think he would be so difficult to get the ball off. You know, yeah, he made some silly little mistakes. He gave the ball away a few times, some little sloppy passes, but he was trying. And that's what Spurs really miss, risk takers. A lot of the stuff that you'll see in the all or nothing stuff that Mourinho says to them, he wants more of this fight, this desire, this, taking risks and stuff like that. This was, I think, probably one of the really most disappointing things, that what made anyone that probably watched the last 3 episodes of the series, having watched Sunday's game, think they're just not doing all the things he's asked them to do last season. Why are they not doing it now? It was so depressing. It really was in a football sense. You know, we can't go overboard. It's the first game of the season, so I'm not, going to sit here and start weeping about it, because there's so much more of the season to come. And I do feel, we'll come to the excuses Mourinho came out with, but I do feel there's so many matches ahead that I think a lot of players are going to play themselves into form and fitness. I think we'll see that. Let's talk about the Højbjerg and Winks partnership. It was just so defensive. I think the issue with playing Winks and Højbjerg is that in doing so, you're pushing Højbjerg up the pitch, which forces him into doing a role that he's not really meant to do. So it kind of made him almost like a number 10. And, I've got the stats for him. Where I've got it. He had he was top for pass completion in the whole team on the day. Second most ball recoveries, second most tackles won. But probably the most worrying aspect was that he was actually played the most passes in the final third for Tottenham. He completed 16 out of 19 passes. Højbjerg should not be your man making the most passes in the final third. Not at all. And you'd imagine those passes, if you remember most of them, were sideways, were out to the wings and things like that, or knockbacks. He is not playing those crucial, dangerous through balls into people's path. Pretty much Harry Kane did the only one I can really think of. You could argue Son to Ali, but I still feel he should have passed to Kane. It's just that's not where Højbjerg will do his work. He needs to be... I like when he presses further up the pitch, that's fine, but that should only be in pressing. It shouldn't be in passing. He should be in a more deeper role, and I feel that's where Højbjerg and Lo Celso, or Winks and Lo Celso, or one of those and Ndombele. In my dream world, Højbjerg or Winks sitting behind Ndombele and Lo Celso. I still think that would absolutely wreak havoc and be brilliant. But these players have got to get fit. I do recognise that, obviously. But, Højbjerg, for a debut, he did okay. He wasn't great. It was not going to go up there in the pantheon of greatest debuts ever. He really likes to kick people a lot. I think he kicked probably every Everton player on the pitch. And he's got that very theatrical, over-the-top way of, if he feels he's about to be booked, he throws himself to the ground and rolls around a lot. Which, it's very Oscar-worthy. One he did. I can't remember who he tackled now. But yeah, he got a yellow card anyway for it. But yeah, he's an interesting chap, full of energy, full of He's certainly not lacking for fitness, but I think he needs to, yeah, as I say, not with wings. Just doesn't work. It's just too much of an overload of players that aren't forward thinking in the way they play the game. It works. It would work in protecting the defence, other than that Richarlison chance. But yeah, not for me. Not for me. So let's talk about Mourinho excuses afterwards as well. We'll talk about Dougherty in a bit, but Mourinho's excuses first. I doubt he would have said this if they'd won the game, but he did bring up the fact that Tottenham had positive cases of COVID. You know, we knew that. We obviously couldn't say who, and we still don't really know who. There's been speculation, but whether that was actually true or not, because what he explained was it wasn't just about the people that were infected, it was about those who'd been in close proximity with them who then had to isolate as well. So pre-season was a bit of a mess, and certain players we didn't see, and that's going to be the reason for some of them. He moaned about the internationals. I think the internationals one, the COVID stuff, look, it's something that everyone's had to deal with. I do think it's possible by logic that some clubs could be hit worse. Other clubs may be hit during the season. It's going to be one of those things, but everyone will have to deal with it. International fixtures, I just think was an absolute mess. I think if there was any year to just do away with that Staff Nations League, it's this one. Playing those matches just literally days before the new season start was crazy. You know, he said it himself. You know, Dougherty signed, went straight off on international duty from holidays. Harry Kane came back, one training session, bang, off on international duty. And you know, you saw Kane in his 2 England games, absolute shadow of the Harry Kane we know. You saw him on Sunday, again the shadow of the Harry Kane we know. It actually makes me angry in a weird way. I just don't get the logic behind it. It made no sense to football in what is going to be such a packed calendar as it is to take away the pre-season. I think we're going to have a lot of injuries, all clubs. I mean, I know Spurs had a horrendous injury list last year, but I think all clubs are going to suffer from that this year because they just flogged the players. Ridiculous. I know they had that big gap in the lockdown way back, but the trouble is if you then do this massive, long schedule of fixtures, it's just not gonna work. And yeah, he said he had a bit of a moan about the free kick, and he said that it was pushed a bit forward and no one spotted it. But I'm not a massive fan of that one for me. And to be fair, he admitted it as well. You still got to defend it. That's all it's about, isn't it? Defend the free kick. He's got Mourinho working, he's got Leslie King working, and that defence should know Calvert-Lewin is going to get up high and they're going to target him with the ball. That was just poor defending. I don't think you can blame anyone for that. But yeah, and then he spoke about this lazy pressure as well. This was interesting. It was like in his he didn't mention it in the press conference. He spoke about lazy pressure to Sky Sports and said, you know, this is very much something that it's not good enough. And I think we could see it, and I think that's fair. I think you saw the likes of Harry Kane. I mean, yes, maybe fitness-based. Son, I didn't think was chasing around as much as he normally does. Dele, perhaps, as well. Maybe that's part of the reasoning for the half-time change. And the trouble is, if your attacking trio aren't doing the pressing, Everton just had so much time. And maybe what was slightly more worrying was he spoke about he spoke to BBC after as well, and he was saying that he felt some players were in the wrong state of mind. And it was about ambition, commitment and desire they didn't have. First game of the season. That really disturbed me. That is, you know, you've got to deal with that. If that means leaving certain players out, whoever they may be, do it. Because you cannot start a season in that way. We saw that last year. A lack of mentality. People just acting above their station, I think. And not feeling that they need to pull for the whole team. Tottenham's success, I know it's not trophy success, but success in progression under Pochettino in where they got in the league, second and third places, getting to Champions League finals and the like, came because of their team ethic. Everyone literally probably willing to put their lives on the line for everyone else in that team. If they're not doing that as a collection of individuals, they don't work. It's not good enough. Talented players, yes, but as a team, always going to be better. You know, the sum of your parts and all that sort of stuff. So that really did worry me. You know, you look at when he spoke about the pressure thing, some of the stats. They were 12 teams played in the Premier League at the weekend. Tottenham were bottom of all of them for interceptions, just 4 made. They were bottom for possession won back 42 times across the whole pitch. And they were second from bottom in attempted tackles, just 9 attempted tackles made. Lazy pressure. It is. Ben Davies came out after the game and obviously stuck up for the players and said, I don't think I can see anyone that didn't give their all. That's not the case. I think he has to say that. I don't think he's going to slam his teammates. But you saw that. I was sitting, wherever it is, 20 yards from the pitch. I could see players not going for runs that they really should. I could see Mourinho getting frustrated on the sideline. And again, sorry to go back to all or nothing, but if you watch it, constantly he's hammering home the pressing and how much they need to do it and how much they need to show more fight and desire. And, there's one episode, I think it's the West Ham one, where at halftime he just screams at them to wake up. And anyone that's watched these videos when I used to do them during the Pochettino era, it was something incredibly frustrating. I found it then. I think we're very quick to hang managers out to dry. And I think often we let players get away with stuff. And I'm sorry, but a lot of the problems that we're here under the Pochettino era are still here. And the constant is some of those players. It's not good enough. It really isn't good enough. Someone who I didn't think had an awful game. That sounds faint praise, but I thought Matt Dougherty had a solid debut. I don't think he was brilliant. I think he was knackered. Mourinho said afterwards, this isn't the Matt Dougherty we know. And that's understandable, coming back from holiday and then going off and playing 2 international games and then coming into a fully fledged, Premier League game. And I think his role obviously is a bit different from Wolves. At Wolves, he's a wing back, he was. At Tottenham, he's an advanced right back, but that doesn't mean he's not going to have to come back and do a fair bit of defending, and he did against Everton, and he looked knackered. But what I did think was that he was always willing. He was always trying to get up that right-hand side, and we saw with the link-up with Kane and the shot that should have been a goal what he's going to bring. He's a very potent attacking kind of outlet for Tottenham. And I think the big thing with him, so many times I saw him get into a decent position, he looked up, and players are hiding. Tottenham players are hiding behind Everton players. They weren't making runs. There was no movement whatsoever. And he's probably thinking, God, I'm used to Wolves with everyone. Traore, Jimenez, players like that, all just flying around and getting into positions. I can just pick them out with crosses or passes. And Spurs players who, probably go for bigger fees than these Wolves players, nowhere to be seen. And it was, I think that would probably be a wake-up call for everyone. I hope it's a wake-up call for everyone, that match, because it was dreadful. It was really, really bad, and I'm trying to think of anyone else that really needs singling out. Winks was a little bit back to his old sideways passing ways. It's interesting, again, another one all or nothing. Listen to the way Mourinho talks about Winks. He's got a lot of admiration for Winks, but I felt Sunday was a little bit back to the Winks he talks about before. I don't want to go into too much detail, so that sounds really confusing, but watch it, and if you have watched it, you'll understand what I mean, and you'll understand the fact that Mourinho and Levy like saying quite a lot. Winks, Davies wasn't great, as we saw by the loose pass. Lloris didn't really have too much to do. I don't think he can really be blamed for what happened. Had no chance for the header. Sissoko struggled. Bergwijn was brighter when he came on. Like I say, Belletti he looked like a player that still needs his fitness. This is why players like him, I definitely, if they feel he's fit enough, I'd start him against Plovdiv, Lokomotiv Plovdiv on Thursday, because I think you need to get him up to speed as quickly as possible. Because if you can, I think he's the man that makes things happen with Lo Celso, like I say. Who else came off the bench? Another player as well. It was Sissoko, Belletti, and Bergwijn. That was it, wasn't it? Let's just draw a line under Sunday, because it was horrendous. And, first time I think Mourinho's ever been beaten on opening day. I think first time Spurs have been beaten by Everton at home, I think since 2008, I'm sure I read. So 12 years. It was just such a, it's like you're sprinting because it's the start of the season. Someone trips you over. It was exactly what the feeling was like. It was dreadful. So let's talk about what happens next. Let's talk about strikers, because Mourinho was asked about one after the game. There was a little bit of buzz kind of towards, I think it was about half-time. I'm going to pronounce it right. Trabzonspor president started talking about Alexander Sorloth, the Crystal Palace guy. It's a strange one with Sorloth. Big guy, 6'4" Norwegian striker. He was at Palace, or he's technically part of Palace still. He, very talented young player, went to Palace. Norwegian journalists I know say he went to Palace at the wrong time, went into a team that was struggling, his confidence dipped, didn't even manage to score a Premier League goal in that season that he was there. And then he went off to Turkey and had an absolute smasher of a season. 33 goals, 11 assists, absolutely tore up the Turkish league. Now there's a weird scenario where apparently Trabzonspor have a clause where they can sign him permanently. That's where it gets very complicated because there's some belief that they're looking to sign him for a cheap fee of about 7 million and then they're going to flip him like a house. And RB Leipzig and Spurs were interested in doing the deal. However, there's some people are saying that's not quite how it's going to work and that Palace still should get money and it's a whole of a mess. But anyway, Mourinho in his press conference afterwards was asked about it and just he was very polite. He was like, if the president said that, who am I to correct him? As far as I'm aware, Spurs have been pretty impressed with what he's done out in Turkey, but he's not a player they're expecting to sign. Certainly, I think Leipzig are the ones who will probably try and look to get him. I think they really, really like him. But yeah, it's a funny one. It's a very classic Mourinho type striker, big, bustling guy. And like I say, the media in Norway reckon that he's just gone back to the massive prospect he was before the Palace move. Amazing in Turkey, and apparently in his last couple of appearances internationally, he's been superb as well. But not one that Spurs are going for. So I don't know why I went into all that detail just to tell you he's not one that I don't think Spurs are going to go for. There's the usual. I've been kind of doing loads of digging this week into the various strikers linked to see who are the ones that are actually Spurs players Spurs are looking at, and who are the ones that they're not. Spurs are really looking at a fair few strikers. I think there's this thing almost like, it's clear that there's been players like Milik and stuff like that, and as I'll come to later, Danny Ings that are players that Spurs really like, but unfortunately are just players that probably aren't. It's not their window of opportunity, let's say, to get them within the price range they want and also to convince the players to come. I think that's been a big issue as well. There's no excuses, don't get me wrong. Before anyone goes, you're sticking up for anyone, as I've said repeatedly, Spurs not signing a striker in over a year since Fernando Llorente left is, it's a failure. It really is. It's an absolute calamity, and we saw what it did last season. So they're not getting any easy ride at all from me because I think it's almost criminal, quite frankly, that they haven't been able to bring in another striker of any standard. I know they're looking for a certain standard, but come on. What is it, 13, 14 months' time since Llorente left at the end of his contract? Just not good enough. So players they are looking at and have made contact with either clubs or agents. Habib Diallo, I said him before, the Mets striker, 25 years old, captain of Mets for most of their games last season. 12 goals in a struggling Mets side who he scored, I think it was 26 the season before to get him into Ligue 1. He's one that Spurs certainly are looking at. I think he'd be at the lower end of the price scale. Maybe you're looking at the 15, 18 million. Quite a big guy. I think he's 6'1", so, he can win balls in the air, so he fits that mould as well. So maybe keep an eye on him. Carlos Vinicius, again, you know how my pronunciation is. It's shocking. Vinicius, perhaps. I don't know if it's a soft C or not. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments. Another 25-year-old from Benfica scored 24 goals. He is someone that Tottenham have looked at as well. Talented goal scorer. Can he do it in the English league? Well, who will see. But I think for him, I do wonder whether it's the fee with him would be a bit of a pricey one. Tottenham, as far as I'm aware, their ideal scenario would be to get someone in on a loan with a view to buy. That's not a particularly attractive proposition for selling clubs unless it's a guarantee to buy, which is something Tottenham don't really do often. Even with Lo Celso, it was a clause-dependent one, if they made the top four. So technically, Spurs didn't have to sign Lo Celso. Obviously, they did in January because they could see Mourinho suddenly saw what he couldn't before, that he was going to be a special player. And Gedson Fernandes, we know he's got a potential to buy, clause in there as well. But a lot of selling clubs want a guarantee to buy, which is something Tottenham don't really do. It'd have to be someone special. I think a player that they maybe would do that for is Andrea Belletti. Belletti, 26-year-old Torino captain, scored 22 goals last season. He's fit, ticks a lot of boxes. It hits the mentality that Spurs want. He's a captain. I do think with him, we're talking big money, though. Torino don't want to let him go whatsoever. And I think if Spurs are going to do that, they are going to have to put some money down first for a loan, and then I reckon with a guarantee to buy at the end of next season. But he's another one they're looking at. Milik from Napoli, we know he was one that they've been looking at a long time. I think he was up there with Mourinho's kind of top targets, but I think 14 goals for Napoli. I think with him, I said this before, I think his preference probably was always to stay in Italy. Juventus and Roma looking at him, and it sounds like Roma are going to get that deal done. From the Spurs end, there were some qualms over the fact that I'm led to believe he was looking for 150,000 a week, which, let's be honest, as much as Mourinho wants to dress it up, it is for a backup striker. It is for someone that's going to play less minutes. They will play some matches with Kane, but on the whole, it's going to be Kane up front on his own. And 150 grand a week, that's probably not going to... It's not going to... Llorente was on 100 grand a week, and they offered him 50 grand a week to stay on, and obviously he didn't. But yeah, Belotti's, I think he's a slightly next level. I think if they got him, I think that would be quite a cool signing, but I think that's a tough one to pull off. Torino really don't want to let him go, and I think you'd have to spend the money. It's quite interesting to see that if you saw Mourinho's quotes the other day talking about a striker, he said, I shouldn't have to convince a striker. A striker should have to convince me. It isn't about being a backup. It isn't about being scared of competition. It's coming here and saying to me, I'm going to score goals and I'm going to be your striker. And I do wonder whether that's a little shot at people like Milik, as if to say, you could have come here and played for me and been a big Premier League star, but, The other one, who else I see linked? Paulinho at Braga. I think he's a 27-year-old. I'm told that there's nothing in that one whatsoever. We spoke about Patson Daka last video. He's certainly someone they did look at and they do have liked him. I think he's one that they'll keep an eye on. But unfortunately, it sounds the noise is coming out of his camp that he's looking to stay in Austria for another season, develop. And that's just not Tottenham's loss. I think there's a lot of European sides looking at him. But he said he wants to stay at Salzburg for another year and just continue his development. And then, 22, 23, then look to make that move on, which is a shame because he looks a very talented player. And as I kind of hinted at earlier, Danny Ings. Danny Ings is someone that Spurs really like. They've looked at him before. Obviously, he was at 22 goals last season. He had a cracking Premier League season. 28 years old. I think the problem with him, he doesn't really fit Tottenham's transfer profile in. A bit like I said about Callum Wilson before, 28 years old, massive injury issues. He's had some bad cruciate ligament ones, Danny Ings, before, but obviously came back and had a great season before. He's one that Mourinho and Spurs both really like, but I think there's twofold on that one. I think the price Southampton could ask for would be massive. That English premium, that Premier League premium you get on players. And also, I think Ings would take a fair bit of convincing as well. He's the main man at Southampton. He's going to play week in, week out. And at Spurs, it's very different. Unless Mourinho says to him, I can play two up front as a more regular thing, I think that'd be such a tough deal to do. But he certainly is a player that Spurs have really looked at this window, would love to sign. But, whether it happens. The other one that came out last night, which was odd one in a way, but kind of makes sense when you look at it a little bit deeper, was a guy called Bas Dost, which, for people who wanted Gareth Bale and wanted Paulo Dybala last season, to see a guy called Bas Dost linked with Tottenham is probably just makes you go, ugh. 31-year-old, 6'5", classic kind of that Mourinho archetype you're thinking of, plays for Eintracht Frankfurt. I'm told his agent is putting him around a lot of clubs. He is certainly being put out there. He scored, I think it was 10 goals in the Bundesliga last year. But actually, despite, people might mock him, if you have a look at how his scoring record the year before and before that in Portugal is actually quite phenomenal. I think it's something like 80, maybe 83 goals in 108 appearances, something like that. He scored a hell of a lot of goals in Portugal, phenomenal amount. We're talking almost 30 a season, kind of up the 20s in his latter seasons. But yes, he is 31, and I think with him it's about the price. He's only 6 or 7 million, if that. I haven't really dug deep into this one to really inquire whether it's one that Tottenham are looking at and whether it's just agent talk. But I do feel he just kind of ticks some boxes. Personally, would I want him to be, the only other striker? I think if you're getting him, I think you need to bring in a couple of strikers. I don't think he's your answer, as it were. But if it is a player that Spurs are looking at, and like I say, I will probably look into this. This is trouble. I've had a day off today, so I've kind of haven't really looked into that, and that only came out last night. Like I say, I think the reaction to his signing would not be a great one. Do I think he could be a Llorente type? Certainly from his record, I'd say he actually scores more goals. I think he maybe is taller than Llorente as well. I'm not sure how tall Llorente was. But yeah, he's an odd one. It's not a sexy signing. It's not something to get particularly excited about in any way. Like I say, I think for me, out of all those ones, I really like Belletti. I think Belletti, if Spurs were to get him, I think that's a big signing. I think that would. But like I say, with the way they're doing work in the finances and the deal they were trying to do for a striker, I think there would have to be an element to it where the money was being paid later, and whether Torino will even want to sell. Player might want to go, which is a big call, being a captain of your club as well. The other players I've said, that they certainly have looked at those. Diallo's one. I do worry for certain players, and this is the way maybe Tottenham are doing it, is that they have certain top tier targets they want. When I say top tier, probably not top tier you guys are thinking of in terms of, world's best. I think there's probably within their price parameters. And then I think there's probably other players that they'll come back around to if it just proves impossible to get those other players. I do wonder with Diallo whether he comes into that next bracket of, hang on, lad, we like you and we think you could do a job. And if we can't get these other guys, we'll come back to you. But obviously, that's not a great selling point to try and get him to Tottenham. But apparently they inquired in January and he was quite receptive to coming then and would like to now. But yeah, for me, Belletti stands out. He's probably not quite the exact Mourinho archetype, but he's quality. He's Italy international as well. I think that's almost, as far as you can go, saying it's a bit of a statement signing as well. And that's not a real, you're going to be a backup. That's one where maybe you're probably going to have to fit him in your team a fair bit. But we'll see. I think, I was making inquiries on match day on Sunday last. So at that point, there was nothing really close for a new striker, which I can hear the frustration, coming out from anyone watching this, because more than a year, how are they not close to a striker yet? And I agree. But yeah, as I've said before, not looking for an attacking midfielder, no desire whatsoever to sign a winger. Centre back, they are looking for another one, but that will be once they've tied up a striker. And as I've said before, with left back, because people keep asking me about Reguilon, if Spurs could do a certain bargain, and this may well apply to attacking midfielders and wingers as well, if there's a bargain that comes up late in the window, I think they'd look at it. I think they would if it made sense, like Bergwijn in January. I think they'd look at it. But as an actual desperate targets for right now, they're not looking for a left back, centre, attacking midfielder or winger. But, they certainly like Reguilon as well. They really do. And if I think he was available for a decent price, they probably would go for it. But, there's all this Man U interest as well, and I'm not sure whether that starts bumping up that price tag as well. But I think Spurs need a bit of inspiration. Whether that comes from an Dembele coming back and starting maybe on Thursday, and even if it's against a not to be dismissive, but a team that Tottenham should be beating in the Europa League, it just gives everyone a little bit of a kick up the backside again in the team, and the fans to get excited again. Whether it's from Lo Celso returning, whether it's from a player coming into the club, I think Spurs did good business in the summer. It was bargain business, but that's no reflection, I don't think, on the players. I think they're really good players, and I think as the season goes on, you'll see they were really smart signings. But they need just a little bit of oomph with the striker signing. Personally, I hope it's not some person that is very much a backup and will be used on occasions and will be a safe bargain basement buy. I hope it's someone that you can genuinely see coming in and actually shaking things up a bit. Because I think Harry Kane is amazing. Harry Kane has been amazing for Tottenham. He's one of the world's best strikers. Should any player in the world, though, whether it's Kane, Ronaldo, Messi, be in a position where they know whatever they do on a football pitch, they're not coming off, they're not being substituted, and they'll play the next game? Of course not. Everyone needs motivation, competition, and everything. And Harry Kane's no different. You know, some of the stuff I saw on Sunday, I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on his fitness, but I don't think Harry Kane was chasing down as much as he would normally do. And there were certain instances where he looked frustrated. And I think having someone on the bench that Kane can be told, look, you're not doing the business, mate, you'll be off and we'll bring him on. I think that only improves Harry Kane. And I think that helps Harry Kane reach a lot of the targets and goals he has of himself. And I think it's someone who can play alongside him as well. And I think that's what you need to do. I think it has to be just a bit of excitement. You know, if you've got to find the money from somewhere, if you've got to move things around, even if you've got to get someone out the door to get them, I think it just needs to be something that just gives us all that little bit of spark of inspiration on the pitch, in the club, out the club, fans, everyone. You know, no pundit has got Tottenham in their top 4. They've probably even got them in the top 5 right now. Sunday was an absolute smash in the gut, wasn't it, to anyone that kind of had a bit of positivity going into the season. But it is just one game. It can be fixed, and it's not too late. And with this transfer window going on for a while yet, Tottenham can do something about it off the pitch, but they can also do something about it on the pitch. I think it's down to the players to kind of show that they're not just going to do exactly the same for Mourinho as they did for Pochettino, and they can be more than that. So there you go. I've waffled on for a fair bit there. Apologies for that. And I've probably got a little bit ranty and carried away in points, but we covered a lot, hopefully. I will do a big roundup on the Amazon All or Nothing series at some point, but I really want everyone to watch it first. I'm very wary of spoiling it for anyone. But I will have a little chat about that at some point. As people have pointed out, you'll probably notice me in there popping up from time to time as well. But there's a lot of interesting things to be taken from it as well that I'd like to go into more detail at some point. So let's do that. So Mourinho press conference tomorrow, talking about Plovdiv. I'm also going to listen in, maybe take part in the Plovdiv manager's press conference as well, because he's been a bit vocal about Tottenham. Spurs fly out, I think, tomorrow afternoon to Bulgaria. And let's hope they can get a bit of momentum, because lunchtime kickoff at Southampton on Sunday is not going to be easy. Not even my drive down to Southampton is going to be it's going to be an early drive, but it's not about me. It's about what happens on that pitch. And Hassan Hutel, I really like him as a manager, and I think he's done great stuff with Southampton. And I think Spurs will get to see just exactly why Ings would be such a great buy for them, but maybe also why they can't afford him without a mega fee. But hopefully Tottenham turn it around. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I shall catch you all later in the week, and we'll have a chat about all things Tottenham Hotspur.